We're going to introduce our keynote speaker, Dr. David Mauricio, who became Superintendent of the Peekskill School District in July of 2018. He was born in New York City and raised by his mother and father, both of whom are Latinos who came to New York City to pursue the American dream. Dr. Mauricio graduated from the New York City public school system and then pursued his post-secondary education in Buffalo at SUNY College at Buffalo and University at Buffalo.
Dr. Mauricio also served in the U.S. Army Reserves. He spent over 25 years working for the public schools in various capacities. He is co-founding member and past president of the New York State Association of Latino Administrators and Superintendents. And lastly, and most importantly, he is the husband to Kimberly and the proud father of a son and daughter. So let's welcome back to Buffalo, Dr. David Mauricio.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning. It is such an honor and privilege to be here today with you back in this wonderful city where I spent most of my adult life, and I'm so excited to be here. It is great to see that culture is alive in Buffalo, and the Hispanic culture is alive in Buffalo as well. You know, having the institute that's going to be built, we're not going to say that it may be built or we're hoping it's going to be built. Let us applaud. It will be built. Let us put us into the atmosphere that it will happen. And to see senators speaking in Spanish and Mrs. Belton Cotman, the board president, giving greetings in Spanish, bienvenidos a todos, and those wonderful students who played in the ensemble of guitars. Let's give them a big round of applause as well. Absolutely. And so I know that I am here after breakfast and great speeches as well, and in the middle of the awardees who I'm so honored to be up here and before them. And so I know that the speech that people have shared with me and others have said, be humble so that they connect with you. Be funny so that they laugh with you. And be short so that they like you. So I will align with that so that we can move on. But I'm going to I can speak, as superintendents, we get paid by the minute and the word, so I'm going to make sure that I keep an eye on my time here. But I would like to say that I want to thank Casimiro Rodriguez. Let's give him another big round of applause. You know, he had called me and said, David, would you like to come back to the Heritage Council? It's been about 6 years since I've been here, and in the council breakfast, and it was wonderful then, but it has grown. And I said, I absolutely will be there. Any excuse to bring my family back to Buffalo is amazing. And he said, well, we'd like you to be the keynote. And I said, sure, well, when is it? And he told me it's, today on the Saturday morning, the day after school ends for all of us, and superintendents, which we normally sleep into about 1 p.m. But he said, I'd love for you to be there. And I said, absolutely, I'd be honored to do that. Buffalo has been such an amazing place for me. And I said, there's two challenges. Number one, it is my high school graduation for the district that I'm a superintendent in, and it is on Thursday night. And our rain date is Friday, and then the next rain date is on Saturday, today. And so he said, I'm sure that'll work out. And so why don't you go ahead and commit, because, he doesn't understand the word no in English or in Spanish. And so I said, okay. And I said, there's one other thing, that I live in a mountainous area off the Hudson River, and it rains like all the time. And he said, well, I'm sure you're going to work that out. And I said, oh, absolutely. I think I'll be there. And then I hung up the phone and I thought, I don't have that much power. I can't control the weather, and I just committed to Kaz that I'm going to control the rain for my outdoor graduation. Lo and behold, 6 days of rain was predicted for this weekend, and yesterday and the day before. So I called my team together and I said on Tuesday, I need an indoor venue in 3 days for a 1,000 student individual graduation. Impossible. I said, you don't know Kaz. And so we made it happen. We had an indoor graduation, and thank you again, Kaz, the Hispanic Heritage Council. It is such an honor to be here. Thank you again to all of our elected officials, and I'm honored to share some words with you today. I would like to recognize my beautiful wife from Kaisertown and Mrs. Kimberly Mauricio, formerly Janaski. Let's give her a big round of applause. Thank you for that. And her sister, Darlene Jesenowski, who is a Chief of School Leadership in the Buffalo City School District as well. I want to say thank you and for joining us today. So let me get into some of the work that we're doing in Peekskill, and it's about what was mentioned earlier, diversity, equity, and inclusion. And it is such an honor, again, to be back here as well. Thank you. And let me just speak a little bit about who I am. You heard a little bit about that, but to the left there is my son, David Mauricio Jr., who is finishing his first book. And he was a child in his earlier years who had difficulties with speech and language in his early years, and he called me and said, I'm writing a book. And I said, send it to me. I thought it was, maybe a children's book, 12 pages or something like that. And he's got this multi-chapter book that's a sci-fi book, and he sent me the cover of it. It's being edited, and I'm not selling it today, don't worry. I'm not going to do that. But I am so proud of him. He's going to be 30 years old this year. Let's give David a big round of applause. And then in the center there and to the left is my beautiful daughter, Ileana. She is 6 years old, going on 36 years old, and she is the joy of my life. My son is amazing, but my daughter will take care of me, as you know. And she just runs our household, and we love her to death, and she's just an amazing child. Later I'll do a presentation on if your child's in college and you're thinking about having another child. I'm going to do the pros and cons of that, so you can join me later on that. But I am just so excited to have both of them in my life. Next slide, please. There is me on the left-hand side at 6 years old, educated and born in New York City, and just really excited to have grown up in such a wonderful city and spent time here in Buffalo as well. And then in the middle of my college career, right towards the end, I decided that, I grew up on public assistance. And I needed to give back to this country. And I know it's not perfect, but I felt like I needed to give back to this country. And so I became an Army reservist and for about 8 years. And I just really, I'm no hero. I really give a tribute, and let's give our men from the Legion Post a big round of applause, and thank you, veterans, for your service. And I just felt it was important for me to do that, so I delayed my studies and then came back and graduated and had my mother from New York City and my father he's from the Dominican Republic, Santiago. Any Dominicans in the room here today? Yes. That wasn't that great. Any Dominicans in the room today? All right, all right. And my mother's from Isabela, Puerto Rico. Any Puerto Ricans in the room today? All right, awesome, awesome. So they got to see me graduate. That was their American dream. They didn't get to do it, but they saw me graduate, came to Buffalo and flew, and I went to pick them up at the Buffalo Niagara Airport at the time, and my mother had her oatmeal, Quaker oats, and she took that out, and she had her Goya products, and they were checking everything, and so I said, Ma, you don't have to bring all that. We have tops here. And so, but I was so excited that they got to see me graduate. My father then passed, so he didn't see me graduate after that. But my mother's been there for me and just been so proud. And on the bottom there, I became a principal amongst being a teacher and then became a principal of Lorraine Elementary. And I was so proud and excited. And let's give Mrs. Sharon Belton Cotman, our board president, any individuals, if you work for the Buffalo City School District or have worked for the Buffalo City School District, please stand up. Let us recognize you and say thank you for your service. We appreciate you. We thank you. Cheers to you all. Next slide, please. And I do want to share, in the center there is Mrs. France. She is my second mother. That was back in the day. Remember when other people's parents could discipline you and they could, now you don't do any of that. But back then, she was my second mother. And she raised 6 children, 3 of her own and 3 from other family members, and then a slew of us from the Latino and African American culture. And one day she said, we were all hanging out. We were in high school at the time, and we were headed somewhere, and she had this motherly look, like, you all are about to do something wrong. So you all get in my living room, and you're gonna sit here. And then she pulled me in the front vestibule of her home in Queens, and she closed the door, and she said, "I'm not gonna let you go down the wrong pathway. There is something special about you." And I'm sure she said that to everyone, but to hear it from her made me feel special. Made me feel different from what I see on the news. Made me feel different from what the statistics say a Latino child, born and raised in public dollars, in an impoverished community, where I was headed. She said, "That is not you. You are headed to greater things. You have to believe in yourself, and I will whoop your you know what if you don't." And she meant it, because I've seen her do it to her children. And she then ran for governor when I was in Buffalo of New York, and ran against Governor Pataki, who won, who is from Peekskill. And look at those interconnections, but I got to vote for her on that ballot, and that was the proudest moment I had for my Queens community. So let's give all the Mrs. Francis in the world a big thank you, and that's her son there, one of my best friends as well. Next slide, please. And there I am teaching my first bilingual special education kindergarten class. Those are my students there. The young boy on the left, he actually was in my class. I'm going to keep his name private. But these are my wonderful students, and I got to see him when I became a principal of Bennett High School. He came to summer school and graduated from summer school. I saw his name on the list. I pulled him out of class. He didn't remember me. That was kindergarten. But I remember him, and I remember the challenges he gave me. But it was awesome to see him graduating and moving on, and I was so proud to see him and all of my students as well. Let's give all the teachers and staff that were part of this a big round of applause, and all of our students who have made great things. Next slide, please. And here we are on my backyard on Genesee Street. And I bought one of the homes that they allowed teachers to buy, and I had my class come over with Mrs. Waiters, who was my teacher assistant at the time, and here are the students. And I got to meet Elda Pichardo. Can you stand up? Yes, can you stand up? So she came up to me and said this morning, "It is so great to see you. You were my brother's teacher." And my mother says hello. And that is so great, because you never know where that statement's going to go. But I was so happy to hear that. And now she's secretary of the Hispanic Heritage Council. Let's give her a big round of applause. Say hello to your mother and to your brother as well. Special times in my life. Next slide, please. And when I moved to Peekskill, it was very important for me to remember the roots. Not only my roots from New York City, not only my Latino roots, and as Ms. Belton Cotman said, we are made of Spanish heritage, we are made of Taino heritage, and we are made of African heritage as well, and that's what makes up our Caribbean heritage as well. And I got to remember that wherever I go, I don't leave that in the home. I don't check that anywhere. It is part of who I am. And the other homage I have to pay is to the Buffalo City School District. My sister graduated from Lafayette High School. I brought her up to New York City, and she needed that opportunity to go there, and I'm ever so grateful for the education she received there. My son graduated from Hutch Tech, and I had my entire career in the Buffalo City School District, and I'm just so honored to bring the things I learned in Buffalo with me to Peekskill, and this is part of the work that we do. But the first thing you'll see there is that we made a commitment in our pillars to have culturally responsive education in our pillar. And that is at a time where people are attacking culturally responsive education. But if we don't know that our Taino kings and queens were amazing, and we don't know that our African kings and queens were amazing, then we don't know that we are destined for greatness. And our kids don't know that if we don't teach it to them. And so my board and I got together, and we did two things. That was number one. We were going to be front and center and take the hits, and you know they were hits that came 2 years ago, and they continue to come. And we said we're going to continue that work. In fact, we just launched with one of the 60 pilot school districts in the country to have AP African Studies. The course that was banned in another state, we are teaching it in Peekskill, and it is part of our programming moving forward, along with Latino diaspora, African diaspora as well, and we are moving that work forward. The second thing we did, next slide please. The second thing we did is determine our diversity, equity, inclusion. So when you're being pushed to say you should not be doing that, as a leader, then you have to decide, am I going to back down or am I going to put both feet forward? And so we said, well, what does equity mean to our community? And then we laid it out and said, unapologetically, we are moving forward with equity for all of our children because that's what they deserve. One of the things that we worked on was diversity recruitment. Aaron, our amazing MC, let's give both of them a big round of applause. It's great to see the news here as a partnership. He mentioned that our kids need to see people who look like them and who sound like them and who speak the language like them and from the culture that they come from in front of them, in the classroom and in leadership positions. And he is so right. And so one of the things we did as a board, my first year there, is we said we need a policy that directs me as a board to say we are going to make a continued effort and a concerted effort to find diverse candidates for our children. That doesn't mean that people who don't look like our children don't care for our children. You see, you don't want to alienate them as well. In leadership, you want to thank them because you know they have the care and love for your children. But you also can move forward and cast a net far and wide because there are diverse teachers out there. We have to find them. There are diverse administrators out there. We have to culture them and help them become administrators and find them and bring them part of our team. Next slide, please. Let me share a little bit about what Peekskill is. We're 73% Latino, and we are about 17% African American, and we're about less than 10% white students. And so we are heavily a school district of children of color, and we embrace that mosaic of diversity. Next slide, please. But you have to actually use data to move your agenda forward. And what you see here is that while our children were at 73% Latino, our teachers who were Latino were 25%. Our African American, we had a gap there as well. And then when we look on the right-hand side, amazing white teachers who care about our children, but over 65% of them were white, and only about less than 10% of our children were white. And that just tells you you have to do something. You have to be concerted in your efforts and create a strategic plan, so we have created strategic steps to move that forward. Next slide, please. And what we found also is that the students on the left and on the students on the right as well, our central office administrators did not also really reflect that of our children. But what you see from the blue to the red is you see actual improvement in the percentage of individuals who look like our children, speak like our children, and have their heritage because of our efforts, and we're moving that work forward. So let's give our team a big round of applause. We thank them for their efforts as we move forward. Next slide, please. And you also see this in administration. Our kids need to see people like yourselves who are business leaders, who are elected officials, who are educators and administrators as well, leaders in the community. I know there are lawyers here. I know there are business owners. I was so proud. I don't know if he's here, but I thought I heard Rodriguez Construction. Let's give them a round of applause. Is he here? Hermano, I have to tell you, when I saw that, I was so proud to see that that you as a Latino are leading that effort and part of your construction firm. Another big round of applause for Rodriguez Construction. Salud, hermano. Next slide, please. Here's what our team looks like. And what this tells me, it didn't always look like this, but this is what our administrative team looked like. At the top executive level, our entire cabinet are high quality. You never sacrifice that. But you find people that are amazing, and then you endear them to come and work for your district. And you see a variety of individuals from our, we have white, black, Asian, men, women, working for our district. but you actually see that you can move the needle forward by committing to it, saying it, planning for it, and then most importantly, as Nike says, just do it. And you got to move forward. Next slide. And here's our school leadership team, and you see also the diversity of our children, so they get to look up and see people at the administrative level who look like them and know their story and a part of their world. Very important. Next slide, please. The other thing I would like to say is that when I was in Buffalo, I got to be part of this amazing initiative called Community Schools. And the leadership of Buffalo, the superintendent, the board, was committed to moving this work forward and bringing all these amazing partnerships and organizations to the table to be part of our community schools efforts. If you are from a non-for-profit organization, please stand, because we need to really recognize you and thank you. So if you're from a non-for-profit organization here in Western New York, please stand. Let us give you a round of applause. We thank you for your commitment, your efforts. Many faces that I know. It is great to see you as well. We cannot do this work for you. Thank you so much. And here you see our partners. Next slide. I think you'll see our Saturday Academy initiative. And this was born here in Buffalo, and I took it with me to Peekskill, and it was a great way because we had divide in our community. Our African American communities went to certain churches and to certain events, and our Latino community went to certain churches and certain events, and our white community and our middle class community, they went to certain events and certain organizations, and the intermixing of our people was not existing. The Saturday Academy allowed us to open up our school on Saturday and bring in organizations, bring in different companies and businesses and banks and dental organizations and different types of opportunities to bring everyone together. We start with a breakfast just like this, and my team said, no problem, we can get some of those cereal where you peel off the top layer, and we'll do a couple of apples and things like that. And I said, oh, no. Latinos don't eat that way. My people don't eat that way. This community, they deserve a warm breakfast with eggs and fruit and bacon and pancakes and the healthy stuff and maybe some of the non-healthy stuff, but they need to have a warm breakfast, because a community that eats together and breaks breads together actually grows together. And that's what we've been able to do in our Saturday Academy. We have the circus there, we have the zoo there. Our kids actually get to hold a kangaroo and see them born and see them be raised together. They get to work on arts and sciences and mathematics. They get cultural presentations. We moved this year to put Black History Month in our Saturday Academy, and we recognize individuals and the cultural heritage that African American and Black individuals have brought to this to American history and Latino history as well, women's history, Jewish history. We are just bringing it all together. And we have moved from celebrating heritage in the month that it is celebrated. We do that. But we are celebrating it all year long, because Black history is all year long, Hispanic history is all year long, Latino history and women's history is all year long. So we are moving in that effort. Next slide. And then we bought a firehouse. The city was selling a fire station. They built this state-of-the-art new fire station, and they had this up for sale. I met with the city manager, who is essentially the mayor. I offered him $1, which you have to offer, at least $1. He laughed and did not sell it to me for $1. But we bought this firehouse, and we turned it into, we had to buy a market rate because there's rules related to that, but we turned it into the Family Resource Center. And we took the bay where the fire truck would sit and made it look like a New York City restaurant where our families come in and they are greeted in this beautiful space. And then we have transportation, special education, we have parent registration. We do everything in one shop. So we're not saying go here for this, go there for that, go to this office for this. It is in the walking community of where our children and families live. And then the space that used to be the large hall where the firemen would meet, fire persons would meet, that became a space where we offer GED classes, how to buy a home, how to fix your credit, how to save for college, and we offer different types of classes specifically for our parents in English and in Spanish, and now we're moving into Arabic because we have an Arabic population that's coming as well. And so that is amazing. We are so excited about that. And now here's the tricky part. As a school district, you can't just say we're doing that. You have to go out to the public and asked them to vote on the proposal for that to happen. And we had over 75% of the people vote for that to happen. And I want to thank that community for all that they have done. Thank you. Next slide. And here they are here. Next slide. Pedro Noguera, he's a world famous educator. And he talks about how do we get students excited about learning. I'm just going to check the time. Okay. And that is probably the most important thing we have to do. Because when students are excited about learning, they actually want to come to school. They want to be part of the educational process. They go home and learn more about it. And that is the role of our teachers. And Buffalo has amazing teachers. Peekskill has amazing teachers. We see that all throughout our country where our teachers are inspiring our students. Next slide. And what you'll see is that one of the areas that we focused on is mission full steam ahead. And we knew that STEAM is the future for many of our students. Not all of our students, but for many of our students. And if we don't provide STEAM opportunities, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, and the arts included into that, then we keep our students out of a whole world of job opportunities and college opportunities now, and more importantly, in the future. So one of the things we did is we created this pathway from pre-K all the way to grade 12. And in each and every one of our schools, we established a STEAM lab in pre-K with robotics that are appropriate for 4-year-olds, all the way up to our high school where we have robotics, we have engineering, we have arts, computer sciences, all in one space. And that was critical for us. And let us move to the next slide. Here you see, I'm going to go through these quickly. This is our STEAM lab at Uriah Hill. We cut the ribbon this year, so our kids are doing robotics at age 3 and 4. They're coding. They're learning to code appropriately. They're learning how to use their mind to solve problems. And that's critically important for them. Next slide. This was a space at my daughter's school. So she actually goes to the school district. She's in 1st grade right now. And they call her the mayor of Woodside Elementary School. And I know exactly what they mean. But this was a space that was just used for lunch. And so it's not a pretty space. And so, next slide, what we did is convert it into a STEAM lab for our 5-year-olds and our 4-year-olds and our 6-year-olds with the latest technology, and they're working on Lego robotics. They're building things together. They're building bridges as a team of 4- and 5-year-olds. Because the truth of the matter is that when kids learn to work together and solve problems, that moves into their social-emotional ability to solve problems, to solve conflicts, in a way that is not with their fists, but with their minds and hearts. And that is what we need to move forward with our children, and it starts in science, and it starts in the home, and it's all interconnected. Next slide. And then we built a STEAM lab. This is the concept of what we built. Move forward to the next slide. And then we actually built at our 4th and 5th grade school, a STEAM lab as well, as I did in each one of our schools with our team. But again, the voters had a vote on this. And some people don't always feel that the movement of a school district or the expenditure of the dollars is worth the movement for whatever reason, and they have a right to vote. But you have to get your word out as a community, as a leadership team on why that is important. Just like you're going to do for the Institute of Culture here in Buffalo as well. All very important. Next slide. This was our concept for our high school. We had a space that was filled of books and different types of custodial equipment and things of that nature, and it was huge. But it was used for that. And we wanted a state-of-the-art STEAM lab that looked like a college setting for our kids, that's loungy, but has a robotics pin, it has sciences and computer sciences. And so next slide, you'll see what we actually were able to deliver. And that is the STEAM lab at our high school that now we went to the most wealthiest community, and we visited. Scarsdale is one of them, one of the richest communities in America. And we went there, we saw their high school STEAM lab. I brought my team afterwards, and I said, I want that for our kids. I don't know what it's going to cost, just like Casimiro said. Not sure what it's going to cost, how we're going to make it happen, but we're going to believe it's going to happen, and the funding will come, and the funding came, and we made it happen during the pandemic, which was not easy, but we are very proud and excited of that. Next slide. It actually also changed the landscape of that neighborhood. And so at night, you get to see this beautiful STEAM lab lit up in that community that might be struggling financially. And so they get to be proud of what they see and what we were able to do as a community. Next slide. I'll close with this. So I was on a panel 2 weeks ago in New York City, and the concept of AI came up, artificial intelligence. And they wanted to know what we as educators felt about artificial intelligence. There's this apps out there where you can say, write me a science article on X, Y, or Z, and it will write that for you, and then you can use it. And the fear is that our kids will use that, submit it, and it's not their work. The reality is that AI is not stopping because we're afraid that kids are going to use it for that reason. What we have to do is teach our kids to use the tools that are available to them for scholarly research, citation, and using that to really grow their mind and move their thinking forward. Technology is certainly not going away. We are embracing it in our community. I'll share an example with you that's going to be a reality. I was talking to someone, one of our high school students, about the Jetsons. Anyone remember the Jetsons? Yes, that was a wonderful cartoon that was so futuristic you thought in your lifetime you will never see a robot clean your floor. You will never see someone on TV live in your kitchen who talks to you back and forth. You will never have a robot in your home. I had learned to make a little money when I was about 14 years old. I wanted to buy a car. And I started a small little business. I would deliver groceries to my neighbors. And they would call my house and they would say, David, could you come over and I'm going to give you a list and I want you to run to the store and buy these groceries for me. And then I'm going to pay you a little bit on top of that for that to happen. So they would call me and I would go and they'd give me a list and La Doña would say, I need bread, I need 6 eggs, not 12, and make sure they're not cracked. Because in my neighborhood, they would sell things by pieces. You know, I need 3 cigarettes, I need 6 eggs, 2 slices of bread, a quarter of ham, sliced it thin, right? And they would send me to go buy these things, and I would go buy them, I'd bring it back, and they'd give me a quarter. And then I got good. And they would call and it'd be my doña, Alicia. And I said, oh, I know what you want. You want this? You want 6 eggs that are not cracked? You want me to spin them, right? Yep, you know, I gotta spin them. I'll get you this week you may want turkey. Yep, I'll take turkey. And the bread. And I did that and I would run around. I had a little business going on in my neighborhood. None of my friends got into that business. I didn't tell them about the model. I just did it myself. Later, I realized I was Amazon Prime. If I would have focused, if I had a STEAM lab like that, I might have been Jeff Bezos. I went into education and I am rich. I am rich with love and care for the service, but I had Amazon Prime in my hands. All I needed is a model and move that forward. But then I realized that the Jetsons' life is our life. And my wife got me a Alexa device. It was the original one. It was the round one with the little blue light. And I would say, Alexa, I need to buy milk, or I need to buy this, and it would deliver it to you, just like my model. And then I would say, Alexa, play Mark Anthony's greatest hits. And she would play Bon Jovi. Because the first model wasn't that good. And I don't know about you, but I used to get in arguments with Alexa. Alexa, Mark Anthony, right? And she would say, oh, you want Bruce Springer. Okay, we'll play that. And then it got better and better. And then we actually got one that had a screen on it. And this one would actually follow you in the kitchen, which was weird. But it would follow you in the kitchen as you walked. And then AI came and grew. So now what Alexa does is my wife and I were talking, and Alexa heard us, even though they say it doesn't. And then the next day it said, would you like to buy this product that we just talked about? Has that happened? Round of applause if that's happened to you. So then I was in my car. No Alexa device in my car. and we were talking. And all of a sudden, I got home, and on the screen was the item that we had talked about, my wife and I. I said, did you tell Alexa that we wanted to buy this? She said, no, not me. I know I didn't. But then I remembered I had a cell phone in the car. And on that cell phone, I have an app called Alexa. And sure enough, it was there. And then one day, I was by myself in the car. I didn't say a word, because that would be odd if you're talking to yourself. I thought something. I thought about strawberry Yahoo milk. Something I enjoyed growing up, buying at the local store. And wouldn't you know it, when I got home, the Alexa device asked me if I wanted to buy Yahoo milk. I can't tell you it happened, for real. I can't tell you what happened, but I am telling you AI is here to stay. We have to make sure that our kids are connected to technology. The world is their oyster, and it is available to them. And let me close by this. My father, through a disability, lost his job. I think I was around 5. See, that flag they gave me got me all emotional here now. See, so, but he was around 5. I remember the phone call where they fired him, and my mother took the call. And then my mother lost her son for a drunk driver in front of her house. And our home became from a working class home where they worked to pay bills. They bought their home for $17,000. Worth a lot more than that today, and we were glad to have sold it and take care of my mother today, who has dementia. But what my teachers knew is that I was special. And it didn't matter that we were poor. It didn't matter that we bought with food stamps. It didn't matter that the government helped us with our rent or our light. Because we were actually destined for greatness. That's what Taínos are about. And my teachers and the counselors and the social workers wrapped around my family. And they said, you know what? The numbers in your bank account don't indicate where you're headed. And so I started doing this thing. I used the money from my small Amazon Prime business, and I put it in this bank account, this little safe I bought from a place called Alexander's. Anybody remember Alexander's in New York? So I had bought it, Woolworth, and I bought it and I would put the money in there. And after about a month in my business, I had about $12 saved. Not a good business model, but that was my business model. And I kept saving and saving. And what I did was I went to Woolworth and I bought a can of blue paint. Because my brother had moved out, he was older, and I finally got my own room. But my room was in quite disrepair. The ceiling was peeling. The windows were old. The floor was in need of great repair. And the room looked drab. So what I did is I bought this can of blue paint, my favorite color blue, this color right here. I bought a can of white ceiling paint. I bought a razor. My father was a carpenter, so he helped me. And I painted this room painstakingly perfect. The ceiling was scraped, and I painted it bright white. And then I painted each window pane and scraped the leftover paint off of it, because back then they didn't have blue tape at Home Depot. And then I bought a comforter set from Alexander's. It had blue. I bought a rug on the side of my bed that had blue and brown. I found a desk in the street that someone had thrown away, but it was still in good condition. And I got Murphy's oil and shined it up and put it in my house. Another neighbor threw away a lamp. I took the light bulb out, got a new one, and wouldn't you know it, the light worked. So my room had a comforter, it was painted, the floors looked good, I had this desk, I had a pen with a pad next to it, and it reminded me of 8 is Enough. The kind of room that they had in middle class America. And I would stand in the corner. My wife doesn't even know this. I would stand in the corner, turn on all the lights at night, and look at that room and say, I'm somebody. That was my space. That was my journey. And today, my wife doesn't know this, I will clean up our kitchen. I will turn on all the lights when they've gone to bed. And I will stand in the corner and see our kitchen. And I will feel like I made it. Like Mrs. France helped me there, the teachers helped me there, the principals, my mother, the pastors, everybody wrapped around me. Everybody who invested in Amazon Prime, Mauricio, you would be saying, David, buy me this if I was a little bit more business oriented. But the reality is that our kids are not what their zip code says they are. They are not what the bank account says they are. The hue in their skin is an attribute. It is something to be celebrated, and their current state of being does not dictate where they are headed. So if you believe in our kids, and you believe in their future, and you believe in what they can accomplish, and they came from kings and queens, when you see a kid have a struggling moment, go to Home Depot, buy them a blue can of paint, a white can of paint, and you say to them, you are destined for greatness. You go paint that room, make it your space. Be great, because you are made to be wonderful. You are made to shine. You are made for greatness. Therefore, you will be great. Thank you so much to the Hispanic Heritage Council. Es un gran placer. Thank you, everyone. Thank you.